In this video, we're going to take a look at how to use the TI calculator to do two things. The first is to find the trigonometric ratios of an angle given in degrees, an angle given in radians. And then if we're given the trigonometric ratio, we're going to work backwards and find the angle that has that ratio. So the first example, we're going to find all trigonometric ratios of 125 degrees and round to 4 decimal places. So first thing we want to do is make sure that the calculator is in degree mode. So if it's not, you have to arrow over to degree, hit enter, and then now quit to get out of there. So sine, cosine, and tangent are using the sine, cosine, tangent buttons that are written right on the screen. So we have sine of 125 to 4 decimal places is 0.8192, cosine of 125 degrees, negative 0.5736 to 4 decimal places, tangent of 125 is equal to a negative 1.4281. So those are pretty directly and easily found. When we find the cosecant, secant, and cotangent, we have to use the reciprocal property. So the cosecant of an angle is equal to 1 over the sine of the angle. The secant is equal to 1 over the cosine, and the tangent, the cotangent, is equal to 1 over the tangent. So we still use the sine, cosine, and tangent buttons, but we're going to use the reciprocal instead. So to find the cosecant of 125 degrees, we have to take 1 divided by the sine of 125 degrees. And that would be 1.2208. For the secant, we have to take 1 divided by the cosine. So that's 1 divided by cosine of 125. And then for the tangent, cotangent, we take 1 divided by the tangent. Okay, so those are our values for the trig ratios for cosecant, secant, and cotangent. So the next item we're going to look at is how do you find all the trigonometric ratios of 3 pi over 8? Now this one is given in terms of radians instead of degrees, so we have to go to mode, down to radians, hit enter, quit, and we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to type them in exactly. So if we want the sine of 3 pi over 8, we would do sine of 3. The pi key is above the arrow key or the caret key. 3 pi divided by 8. So the sine of 3 pi over 8 radians is equal to 0.9239. If we want to find the cosecant, we have to take 1 divided by the sine. So we're taking 1 divided by the sine of 3 pi over 8 for the cosecant. Then you would do the same thing for cosine, then secant, tangent, cotangent. So the biggest thing to remember on this is remember to go back and forth between degrees and radians on your calculator. All right, second part that we're going to look at is if you're given the trig ratio, how do you work backwards and find the degree measure or the radian measure? So we're going to take a look. We have the tangent of an angle is equal to 2.7245. So what we want to do is find the angle that has that as a tangent. So on the calculator, that's what the inverse tangent button is for. So we're going to write inverse tangent of 2.7245. And that's going to give us the angle measure. For cosine, we're going to take the inverse cosine of both sides. The inverse cosine of 0.4322 is going to give us alpha, and the inverse sine of 0.1307 is going to give us angle A. So these are written right above the sine, cosine, and tangent. So we want our angle in degrees and radians. So I'm going to go mode, make sure you're in degrees for degrees. So the inverse tangent, so I would hit second tangent of 2.7245. In parentheses, enters, the degree measure to 2 decimal places is 69.84 degrees. If we want the radian measure, then I go back to mode, set it at radian measure. I'm going to retype my last line, hit second enter, and that will retype the last line. Now we're in radian measure, it's 1.22 radians. So you can find the inverse functions, find the degree and the radian measure if you're given the trigonometric ratio. So we do the same thing for cosine. Make sure you're in the right mode. And we're going to hit inverse cosine of 0.4322. Enter, gives us 64.39 degrees. And then if we want the radian measure, to mode, hit enter. I'm going to retype the last line. Inverse cosine is 1.12 radians. All right, so I'll leave the inverse sign for you. So those are the two items that we need the calculator for in this chapter more than anything else, are how to find the trig ratios given the angle and how to find the angle given the trig ratio.